Hey guys, it's Alexandra from iloveknots.com. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a corner to corner square worked in half double crochet boxes. I'm going to be turning my square into a throw pillow, so I've chosen Red Heart Super Saver as my yarn. I really like this yarn for home projects. It's pretty durable and it machine washes and dries pretty well too. I'm also using an I9 5.5mm crochet hook. Depending on what you're making, you can change up the yarn that you're using and use the respective crochet hook. Because I'm making a square that the size matters, I'm also going to be using my tape measure to show gauge. If you're working a project where the finish size isn't essential, like an Afghan maybe, or wall hanging, then gauge is not important. Once we build the box enough that I can take gauge, I'll show you how to do it. I'm going to start with a slip knot. So I've pulled the working yarn over my fingers, and I'll hold the tension with my index finger and my thumb. Wrap the yarn around my index finger twice. Then I'll hold the tension with my thumb and middle finger. Pull the loop that's on the left up over the other loop but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop that's behind it up over the other one and off my finger. Take my crochet hook, insert it into the loop that's on my finger, pull it off. Hold the working yarn with my right hand, and with my left hand I have the short tail end. Pull that just so that knot goes up to normal tension. With corner to corner boxes, we start with one box in the bottom corner, and then we build up with each row that we increase one more square on each row. So we're just going to start by working the very first box, and we're going to start with a chain 5. To chain, we yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. Yarn over, pull through the loop on our hook. That gives us 3 chains. We want 5 chains. Now we're going to work down those chains to form the first box. My first stitch is going to be in the 3rd stitch from the hook. We don't count the loop that's on our hook. 1, 2, 3 chains. And to half double crochet, we yarn over, insert our hook directly into the center of the chain, yarn over, pull through. We have 3 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. We'll continue to work a half double crochet into the next 2 chains. Yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, right into the center of it. Yarn over, pull through. There are 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And one more half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over, pull through. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Then I can just hold the fabric and pull that short tail end to close that hole up, and there's our very first box. I find that when you work in half double crochet boxes, it does not create a square box, it actually creates a rectangular box. And that's because 4 stitches is wider than it is tall when working in half double crochet. When working in double crochet, you actually get a square. In half double crochet, it's a rectangle. The only way that I've found to make it a square is to take off one of the stitches and make a box that just has like 2 half double crochets and the chain. I have yet to work a project up like this because I started and then I found that it was just taking a lot longer than I wanted it to, so I worked the extra stitch. This box has 3 half double crochets, and by skipping those stitches in the beginning, that also counts as a half double crochet. So technically there are 4 stitches here in this box, and each box will be made with 4 half double crochets. To start row 2, we're going to chain 5. And we're chaining 5 here because we're increasing. We're getting larger. We're going to work down the box the same exact way. So I'm going to find the third chain from the hook, yarn over, and work a half double crochet into that chain. Half double crochet into the next chain, and half double crochet into the last chain. This gives us an alligator mouth shape here. We're going to take the bottom fabric and flip it so it's mirrored. And then we're going to slip stitch join to the very top stitch, the last stitch. If you need to count over, you can count these stitches underneath from the box. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the chain. Or when you close the box up to lay them as they will in the finished square, it's the stitch that's the most natural, the one that's right next to where your stitch is. Insert your hook right into that stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop on your hook, and that completes a slip stitch. That connects your boxes so they're secured together. We will slip stitch each box together. So when we start and we're increasing, we start with a chain 5 and then we build our box. When we're in the center or on the edge, we start with a chain. A lot of designers start with a chain 2. I do not like the way that it pushes my boxes out, so I work a chain 1 only. You're going to work 2 half double crochets into the space that's in between the last 2 stitches of the previous box. So we're in the previous box right now. You can pull out the stitches and you'll see that there's a space right there in between those very last stitches of that box. That's where we want to work our 2 half double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook right into that space, and when you do that you pick up the chains on your hook. You're going to crochet over those and then complete your half double crochet. Then I'll work 1 more half double crochet into that same space. We have 3 stitches now. I'm going to work a 4th stitch to complete my box, and some designers work it into this space as well. When I work in the center of the square, I will do that, but when I'm on the edge, to get my edge straighter, I work the very last stitch here on the edge, the foundation chain of that previous box. So here we've worked the 2 half double crochets into the space in between the stitches. I'm going to come to the stitch that's on the very edge, the foundation chain, and that's where I'm going to work my last half double crochet. And I also work it into the 3rd stitch from that box. So you can count over 1, 2, 3. That's where I think it gives me the most straight edge. So I'm just going to insert right into that stitch and complete my half double crochet. And there's row 2 finished with 2 boxes. For row 3, we're going to have 3 boxes. I'm going to start with a chain 5. Then I'll half double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook, into the 4th chain, and into the 5th chain. We have our alligator shape here, our alligator shaped mouth. Flip that bottom fabric so it's mirrored. Find the top stitch there on the edge, and that's where we're going to slip stitch 2. When you work a chain 2 for your box, it's a lot easier to find that stitch. The chain 1 is lower. So if we look at the stitches from that box, 1, 2, 3, those are the half double crochets, and the chain 1 is lower than it. It's around the corner here. So I'll skip those first 3 half double crochets, insert my hook into that chain 1 stitch next to it, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook. That is a slip stitch join. It's a little harder to see that stitch when you're slip stitching, but when you're crocheting, you still see that space right in there very easily. So that my fabric doesn't get stuck on my hook, I'm going to fold it down on itself. And then remember here I said in the center and on the edge, we start with a chain 1. Some designers start with a chain 2. I am working my entire square with chain 1 because that is the look I like. I find chain 2 just pushes my boxes out too much. So here, chain 1. Then we find that space that's right in between those last 2 stitches from the previous box. And for this box that's in the center, we're going to work 3 half double crochets into that very space. Then I'll pull my fabric up on the left. I'm going to slip stitch join to the top stitch, the very last stitch. And now I need one more box. I'm starting with a chain 1. Then I'm going to find that space in between those last 2 stitches. And because I'm here on the edge, I'm going to work only 2 half double crochets into that space. And my last half double crochet, I'm going to work it on the edge of the foundation chain of that previous box. And I said that I like to do it in the 3rd stitch, which is this one right here. And there is row 3 with 3 boxes. I'm going to be taking gauge at row 6, but if you want to see if you're kind of in the ballpark already, you can take your soft tape measure, you can measure the width right here, and you're going to have about 2 3/8 inches wide. And you measure the height, you're going to have about 2 inches tall. For row 4, we're going to have 4 boxes. I'm starting with my chain 5. Half double crochet into the 3rd chain, into the 4th chain, and into the 5th chain. Take the bottom fabric, flip it so it's mirrored. Skip the first 3 half double crochets and slip stitch into the chain 1, which counts as the last stitch of that box. Fold my fabric down on the left so it doesn't get caught on my crochet hook. For every box in the center and on the edge, we start with a chain 1. Then we work 3 half double crochets into that space in between those last 2 stitches from that previous box. Then I'll fold my fabric up, skip the first 3 half double crochets, skip the first 3 half double crochets, slip stitch join to the chain 1 next to it, fold my fabric down on the left, chain 1 because I'm working here in the center. Then I'll work 3 half double crochets into that space in between those last 2 stitches of that previous box. Fold my fabric back up, skip the next 3 half double crochets, slip stitch join to that next chain, chain 1. Because I'm on the edge here, I'm going to work 2 half double crochets into that space in between those 2 stitches. And then I'm working my very last half double crochet into the side edge of that foundation chain. And there is row 4 with 4 boxes. Row 5 is going to have 5 boxes. Start with a chain 5. We always start with a chain 5 as long as we're increasing. Work your first box. Flip your bottom fabric so it's mirrored. Slip stitch join. Chain 1. 3 half double crochets into that space. Slip stitch join. Chain 1. 3 half double crochets into that space. Slip stitch join. Chain 1. 3 half double crochets into that space. Slip stitch join. We're on the edge. Chain 1. 2 half double crochets into that space. 1 half double crochet into the side edge. There is row 5. We had 5 boxes. I'm going to work one more row and then I will show you how to take gauge again, and then I'll work the remaining rows of my square off camera because I'm not sure exactly how many rows I'm going to be working yet. But let's work row 6. There is row 6 complete with 6 boxes. The easy way to tell is you can count diagonally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That works as long as you're increasing. Once you start working even rows or decreasing, that doesn't really work. But the other way to count it is going to be here, starting with the first box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so let's talk about gauge really quickly. I'm gonna take my soft tape measure, lay it on the left edge, and measure over to the right edge. Right now my width is measuring 4 1/8 inches. Then I'm going to take the soft tape measure, measure from the top edge all the way down to the bottom edge, and it's measuring about 3 5/8 inches tall. If you're following along with me and you want to have a finished square the same size as mine, then you will want to meet this gauge. If you have not, you will either want to go up a hook size or down a hook size, rework these first 6 rows, and then take your gauge again. Gauge is only important if the finished size of the square is important. If you're using it for something like a pillow where the size needs to be the same, that's when it's important. If you're using this as an Afghan square and you're going to sew a bunch together, as long as they're all consistent, that's fine. Can you hear my cat? That's Shiloh. Anyway, if you're making a project where the finished size is not terribly essential, then you can just continue on as you're going, and when you reach the size that you want, that's when you can stop. I'm going to go ahead and continue working off camera so I can build the square up until I get to the size that I want for my throw pillow. Then I will come back here and I will let you know how many rows I worked and what the size is. Then I'll show you how to decrease your square. For my square, which will be about 16 inches, I worked 28 rows, that is 28 boxes, and my square is measuring about 15 7/8 inches wide by 15 3/4 inches tall. I'm going to put up a chart that shows how many rows you're going to need depending on what size you'd like to make. I'm looking for a square that's about 16 inches, so this is where I'm stopping. I am no longer going to be increasing. So for the remaining rows, instead of working a chain 5 and working down the box, I'm going to slip stitch over and work my first box next to it. In each of the remaining rows, you will decrease by 1 box, and at the end, you're going to have just 1 box left. I'm going to start with a chain 1, and then I'll turn. We're going to skip the first stitch, slip stitch into the second stitch, slip stitch into the third stitch, and slip stitch into the fourth stitch, which is the chain 1. Then we're going to rotate our fabric, work a chain 1, and then work our box as normal. Slip stitch to the next box, and then I'm going to pull up a big loop here so I don't lose it. You're going to notice that we're building a side edge here. Right now we are decreasing to form the other side right here of our square. So we always slip stitch over now on both sides. It's going to create this edge, and then work our first box on top of it. Here you see this little dip on the edge. It's really easy to use your fingers to manipulate the fabric so that that becomes straighter. But at the end of the pattern, we're going to add a border, which is going to cover up any wonkiness that might be left. And now I'm going to continue working all the way down. When I get to the very last box here, I'm going to work my box here next to it to the right, and then I'll slip stitch join. I'm not going to chain on top of it and work another box, because this is as tall as I want my square to be. Now I've reached the end of my row. I worked my very last box here and I slip stitch joined, and that's the end. I am not building a box on top. To begin the next row, we simply chain 1 and turn. Skip the very first stitch, slip stitch into the second, slip stitch into the third, and then slip stitch into the fourth, which is the beginning chain 1. Then we rotate our fabric, chain 1, and work our first box as normal. Slip stitch here as normal, and I'm going to pull up a loop, and then again you can just use your fingers to manipulate that fabric there and continue on as normal. I'm going to work all the way down the row, and when I get to the end I'm going to slip stitch join to that last box there, and that's going to be it for the end of the row. And now that you've worked a row past the last one of increasing, you can see that side edge there, so you just want to make sure all your boxes line up together. When you're counting your rows, now that you've started to decrease, I'm going to take you here to the very first box of the row. To count this, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and then we start counting upward. 29, 30. This is the 30th row that I have just started. After you start decreasing, you can't really count diagonally the boxes anymore, because while they are getting smaller, the row count is getting bigger. So just count from the very first box all the way over to the other end, and then start counting upwards. When you're finished with this square, you're going to have just one box left. When I get there, I will come back on and show you how to do a quick border. Now that we've finished our square, we're going to start a border. My border is going to be worked in 2 rounds. The first one is a really simple foundation, and then the second one is just evenly stitching. I'm going to start with a chain 1. Then I'm going to pull those 2 boxes apart that I just finished joining to. We're going to work a single crochet into each of these spaces all the way around, and we'll increase in the corners. To work a single crochet, we're going to insert a hook right into the center of that stitch. Yarn over, pull through. There are 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. Then we'll chain 1. In the next space in between boxes, insert your hook into that space, yarn over, pull through. There are 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops. Chain 1. Single crochet into the next space, insert your hook into the space, yarn over, pull through. 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Chain 1. We're going to continue in this manner. Single crochet into the space, chain 1, single crochet into the next space, chain 1, all the way until I get to the end. I've worked up till the last space of this side. I worked my single crochet and I chained 1. Our next stitch is going to be in the corner. We're going to increase here so that our corner lays flat. So you'll insert your hook into the top stitch of the corner and complete a single crochet. Then we'll chain 2, rotate our fabric, single crochet into that same exact stitch we just worked into, and then we're ready to continue just as we did before. Chain 1, single crochet into the space in between the next 2 boxes, chain 1, single crochet into the space in between the next 2 boxes, chain 1, continue all the way across the row. Now we've reached the next corner. I've worked my last single crochet between those boxes, chain 1, into the corner stitch we're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Here we happen to be where our foundation chain started, so this hole is going to continue to get larger. You can just hold the stitching with your right hand and pull the tail end to close that hole up. When we weave in our ends, we will secure this down. Then I'm going to rotate my fabric, and it's time to begin again. Chain 1, single crochet into that space in between those next 2 boxes. Continue working all the way across. When you get to the next corner, you're going to single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the same stitch. Then you'll rotate, work up the next side. When we get to the last corner, we will work it into a slightly different stitch so that it retains its square shape here, and then we will finish off. I'm going to go ahead and work up until this corner right here. Alright, I've worked my last single crochet in between those boxes there, and I'm at the last corner. Chain 1, From the left side, it's easier to count 1, 2, 3 stitches over. This is the stitch I recommend that you work into here so that it keeps its square shape here. Single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1, rotate my fabric a little bit here, slip stitch join to the very first stitch of the round, so I'm going to insert under both loops there, yarn over, pull through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook. And now we have joined our first round of the border. I was going to work 2 rounds of my border, but when I just measured, my square is measuring 16 inches wide, so I'm not going to add another border here. I will do that whenever I assemble my pillow, since I'm using mine to create a throw pillow. If you did want to add another round of the border here, if you're going to do single crochet or half double crochet, you would chain 1, work 1 stitch into each stitch and each space all the way across to the corner. In this next corner here, you would work a stitch followed by a chain 1 and another stitch all into that chain space there. Then you would continue to work your stitches all the way down and do the same thing in each corner. If you're going to work a double crochet, you will start with a chain 2, double crochet into each stitch, not counting the first one because this double crochet will count as your first stitch. So it would start in the next chain space, double crochet all the way across. When you get to the corner, you will need to increase. I can't say for certain what it would be, but I would recommend trying a double crochet, chain 2 double crochet. If it does not give you the edge that you need, if it's more rounded or it's puckering, try double crochet, chain 3 double crochet. You might have to experiment with it there, and then double crochet into each stitch down, repeating the same process in the next corner. Either way, when you get back around, you will work your last stitch into this chain space before your chain and slip stitch join to the first stitch of the round. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off my yarn here, leaving a tail end long enough I can weave in, pull up on that loop to break it, insert my hook into the same stitch from the wrong side to the right side, and pull that loop through. I'll start by threading my end into my tapestry needle. I like to work down a stitch. So if you look at these 2 boxes here, this one has vertical stitches, this one has horizontal stitches. I'm going to work into the vertical stitches there, working into a nearby stitch. I always start by breaking my stitch in half. So this is picking up the whole stitch. Instead, I insert right into the center of the stitch, breaking it in half. Then I'll work down several stitches here, and when I come out, I'll also break my stitch in half, and that's just going to help catch my yarn better. I always work 3 passes. This is my first pass. I'll insert into a nearby stitch over here, remembering to break it in half. Work up through several of the stitches I just worked, break my exit in half. That's 2 passes, and then I work 3. If you're comfortable after 2 passes, you can stop. If you don't feel comfortable enough after 3, you can work another one. Whatever it takes for you to feel comfortable with your ends. I'm actually going to work 1 more. And then I'll fasten off. And now my square is finished, and I can now work the back panels to finish off my throw pillow. Once I get those done, I will be posting a separate video to that and the assembly of the throw pillow. While I'm turning my square into a throw pillow, if there's any projects you would like to be seen with an Afghan square worked in half double crochet corner to corner boxes, drop me a line below letting me know. Find the written pattern for this at iloveknots.com, also linked in the description below. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.